Previously on 4D with Demi Lovato.
The past year and a half, I've been doing some healing and self-reflective work. And through this work, I've had the revelation that I identify as non-binary. With that said, I'll officially be changing my pronouns to they, them.
The reason why that happened was because I was ignoring my truth. And I was suppressing who I really am in order to please stylists, team members, or this or that, or even fans that wanted me to be the sexy, feminine pop star. I could leave my career today. I'm still going to identify as non-binary tomorrow.
Hello?
Hi, my name is Estrella and welcome to my channel where I talk about social issues, the media, and sometimes myself. So for today's video, I'll be discussing Demi Lovato coming out as non-binary and now choosing to use they, them pronouns. I have a lot of thoughts and I feel like it's worth sharing because I think I sit somewhere in between. I also think that not only is this relevant to you guys, the internet, but also this is relevant to myself because I identify as being part of the LGBTQ community. I would say I'm bisexual, and also I have been questioning my gender identity since I posted my male gaze video. Yeah, that's kind of where I stand in terms of my positionality. But yeah, let's just dive right into it. Just a brief explanation of what being non-binary is. It's basically under the umbrella of being trans, and within non-binary there's a lot of different types as well. Essentially, the short description of being a non-binary is that the person doesn't identify with the gender that people usually associate their sex with. So if someone is AFAB and they're non-binary, that means they do not identify as being a woman. And if someone is an AMAB and they're non-binary, that means they do not identify as being a man.
Non-binary means that you are not exclusively a man nor a woman. Gender non-conforming means you visibly defy society's ideas of what a man or woman should look like. So the difference is really about identity versus expression in that way.
But I'll leave it at that because there's like so much information online about this topic and I'm still learning myself, so yeah. So Demi Lovato recently came out as non-binary on a podcast, so they wanted to have a guest who knows more about it to talk about this topic. I think that was a very good call because it made the podcast a lot more informative and organized. I feel like them coming out and talking about their experience in the podcast seemed to resonate with a lot of people, so I think in general that was a positive thing to do. I also want to be clear that I do not think they're attention seeking by coming out. I also don't think it's wrong to use they, them pronouns. I also use they, them pronouns and she, her pronouns, and like it's not grammatically incorrect. In fact, it's been around since the 14th century using they, them pronouns as singular pronouns, so I think it's completely fine what Demi did. However, I don't think that we should glamorize them for being non-binary and excuse them from the mistakes that they have made in the past. They have only come out about a week or so we don't know if they'll continue to make the same mistakes that they have made. And if they do, they shouldn't be excused and put on a pedestal because now they're queer. Just for context, some controversies that Demi has been involved in, one of them being an argument with Taylor Swift on Twitter about how Taylor Swift donated a bunch of money to 𝖍𝖓𝖓's court case, and Demi Lovato was triggered by that because they thought that Taylor Swift shouldn't be just donating, they should talk about it on social media, but this was completely irrelevant to Demi. Another instance is Demi's fight with Nicki Minaj. They had like a outfit situation, not sure, and Demi posted about it on Instagram, making it a bigger deal than it should be. And the most recent controversy that they were involved in was the time they went to a frozen yogurt store and complained on social media about having to walk past sugar-free cookies in order to get the yogurt they wanted. Now this one, it's also problematic because Demi was also making this problem a bigger deal than it is. The store even explained that they do have products specifically for people who need different diets, and to that Demi essentially just said sorry not sorry. If they literally posted that on social media, this could negatively affect the small business versus sales. So because of all of these instances, Demi has a reputation of being problematic. I get that they have struggled with body image and mental health, but that doesn't excuse them from making these mistakes, and more importantly, not even apologizing for them. And I thought this was a good topic to talk about because I feel like a lot of people think that LGBTQ people are just better in general, and I know that I have this bias as well. Like when I meet someone who is queer, I automatically assume that they're better. I mean, I'm not even sure where it comes from, but I guess it's from my experiences with meeting people who are heteronormative and not having the greatest experiences. I feel like just because someone is queer doesn't mean that they're necessarily better, and they shouldn't be put on a different standard. Like being queer really just means that they're not heteronormative and that they have dealt with issues and discrimination and stigma that people who are not queer wouldn't have to deal with. People in the community could be more accepting of others because they have dealt with being not accepted, but that's pretty much as far as it goes. When they make a mistake that is completely irrelevant to their identity as a queer person, they shouldn't be written off and be like, whatever, you're queer, that's fine. They should still be accountable for what they've done just like any other person. This is not just about Demi, it's about the community in general. Not everyone is good, just like any other community. In the community, there are people who are good and bad. It's a mix of both. In fact, another example is a guy who is gay and he hated on Demi for using they them pronouns because he thinks that it's not grammatically correct and that they're pushing their own agenda to society, which I mean makes no sense. It's completely absurd because a lot of other people use they them pronouns. It's not just Demi.
I'll even have people saying things like, oh Darren, how can you be so cruel as a gay man to an oppressed minority? And to that I say, how dare you make that comparison?
That is ridiculous. You can hate on other people in the LGBT community and make fun of them and punch them down essentially, and that's okay, and they have to get over it because like they don't count. You count, but they don't count.
When I was a kid being smacked around on the playground for being different to the other lads, I was just trying my level best to get through each day. I wasn't demanding the world alter its language. I wanted to be free from what I perceived to be cruelty.
That's what trans people are doing too. They want to be free from the cruelty. Also, they're not demanding anything. They're informing people of their pronouns because they came out.
And if you still think I'm being a little bit too harsh, consider this. In July of 2020, Lovato described herself as queer. In March 2021, she came out as pansexual and sexually fluid. And then in May 2021, as non-binary.
Oh, it's almost as if these people were in the process of self-discovery and then they finally came to the conclusion that they are in fact non-binary. You're saying it's attention-seeking to come out as trans, but they come out as trans just to be like other people.
So that's already another example of someone in the queer community who isn't that great. And I think queer people are also seen as not being misogynistic, but that's not always the case. Like Demi has associated female empowerment with some like really irrelevant things that make no sense, and they have picked fights with women who did not want to be involved in their drama. Same with the guy who I just talked about. Just because he's in the community because he's gay doesn't mean he's accepting of everyone else in the community. Like he obviously understands his own identity, but he doesn't seem to understand non-binary people's experiences and doesn't seem to care. So yeah, those are just some examples. Like we shouldn't have that bias, and I'm trying to work towards that myself as well. Another thing is that just because people are coming out, like how Demi is doing this, doesn't mean that they have to be put on a different standard or be seen differently, because them coming out just means that they have finally figured out their sexuality or gender identity and they're announcing it to the world. But coming out doesn't mean that they have become a queer person. It means that they have realized they are a queer person. Like they've always been a queer person, they just didn't know that yet. So based on that idea, I don't think we should see them that differently to the extent that we put them on a pedestal, because they have always been the same person, they'll continue to be the same person. It just means that they might not just date someone who is their opposite gender and express their gender identity differently. They've come to terms with their own identity, and like they mentioned in the podcast, is part of healing. It takes a lot to come to terms with it and to realize that you've been living in like like this tiny neat box that people put you in, but it doesn't mean that they're better than anyone else. So I hope that made sense. I'm happy that they're non-binary, but it doesn't mean that they should be excused from their past behavior, and in the future they definitely should not be continued to be excused. And same goes with other LGBTQ people. That's like a huge bias that I think a lot of people have. Well, like this video if you enjoyed it or agree with anything I said. Comment down below your thoughts, what you think about them coming out, and subscribe if you want to watch more videos like this. I make commentary videos every week. Hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you later. Bye.
Hold on. Can we switch the language?